Welcome to Film to Screen. We're Katie and Astrid, and we talk about movies, TV shows, and anything we're currently obsessed with. And today we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the final Guardians movie in the MCU. James Gunn said this is the last time we'll see the Guardians together.
But they also imply that there's going to be a new set of Guardians.
I mean, yeah, the first credit scene we saw, and of course we're getting into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, do not listen to this episode until you've seen it, because we're going right into spoilers. But the end credit scene has Rocket, Groot, one of the children. Oh, Adam's there. And they're like the Guardians.
Craiglin?
Oh yeah, he's there. And I mean, at the end of the movie, they basically all split up. So we just won't see them together as a whole again, which is sad. But, you know, all good things must come to an end. Otherwise, they just drag on forever. And there's no purpose anymore. Just look at Grey's Anatomy.
Shows? Yeah, I was literally about to say that.
Grey's Anatomy, which, I mean, I watch Grey's Anatomy, but I'm only on season 10, so I'm not even to the point where it's like, why do we need this? Like, you can just end it. Like, Meredith left the show, so I don't know why they even...
Yeah. It's also amazing that there's another show that's been going on for 20... Next year's 25 years of the show. If it goes into next year, which it probably will.
Yeah.
Like, some shows are enjoyable enough where people watch them enough where it's justifiable.
Yeah. So before going into this movie, I 100% thought Rocket was going to die.
Okay, admittedly, what Dad and I were saying to you is like bring tissues and stuff, and there's one part where I had to cover my face were not even related to Rocket. Well, the one where I had to cover my face was not Rocket.
Yeah, no, when
do you know what part I'm talking about?
I know exactly the part. When it happened, I was like, that's the part. So when that happened, when they basically defeated the High Evolutionary, Gamora takes off his face mask, essentially. And my friend sitting next to me was like, oh, they're definitely not going to show his deformed face. A second later, they do. And I'm like, oh, it's giving Batman, that one character in
Two-Face.
Yeah, him. I'm not good with DC characters, but him. I was like, it reminds me of that. I know other people were saying it reminds them of the Red Skull, which
I mean,
guess
it would be a mix of it, but it's more Red Skull is more like you don't see like the flesh, like it's just a skull that's red. And yeah. Two-Face, you see, it's like half of his face is like burned. I think it got burned with fire in the Nolan version, but typically I think it gets burned with acid, if I'm correct.
But with the High Evolutionary, it's because Rocket messed him up. And the second that Rocket started to attack him, I was like, that's why he's been hiding his face. That's why. It was because of Rocket. So I went into this movie thinking I was going to lose Rocket. It was still very much an emotional roller coaster, the way the movie started with all the raccoons in the cage and just a scary hand coming out at them. I was like, I can't do this. It's already too much. Like, anytime an animal is in danger, it breaks my heart
Yeah.
more so than when it's a human. I cannot deal with it. Like, for example, at the end of the movie, and I was saying this to a lot of people with Peter. And how he went back for his Zune. And I was like, you deserve to die because that's what you went back for. But then people were pointing it out that he went back for it so he could give it to Rocket. I was like, okay, wait. Okay, maybe it's okay. Which he
I
survives in the end.
I
Um,
saw I saw a funny tweet where someone's like, when Star Lord discovers Spotify on Earth.
oh God, yeah, because now he's
And
back on Earth. He's gonna be going insane. And then it was Adam that saved Peter,
I could tell, like, they had to have Adam redeemed in some
redeem
way.
himself. Yeah. Um, I know there's some comic fans that aren't happy with how they utilized Adam. See, I haven't
Also,
really gotten in the comics, so I don't know that much about him. I liked him in the movie, but maybe if I've been a fan of the comics, I would have been like,
also,
actually, I don't like this portrayal of the character.
also in the comics, Adam has one of the Infinity Stones in his forehead.
Yeah, where they kind
So
of, yeah,
they kind of had to change him.
they kind of had to change him because that's how Vision was with, oh God, which stone?
Soul.
The Soul Stone. Wow.
No. It's not the Soul Stone.
Is it the Mind Stone?
Mind Stone. Jeez.
Okay. I promise you, I've seen the movies. I'm just losing my mind.
They're,
So
they're
they
like
kind of
orange and
replaced
yellow.
that.
So
They kind of replaced that with Vision, and they have like a little bead, I guess, in the middle of his forehead, kind of like Vision, and it reminded me of Vision. And then when I found out that actually in the comics he does have one of the stones in his forehead, I was like, oh, that makes sense. So they kind of alluded to that, even though it wasn't one of the Infinity Stones, because they're all gone, unless if you go to Loki and they just use them as paperweights.
oh yeah, speaking of Loki, there is a connection between Loki and this movie.
Where would a connection be?
Like I don't know the character's name, but it's like the floating robot head. The person who voiced it in this movie is the same person who voiced Miss Minutes.
Oh yes, Tara Strong.
Yes.
Tara Strong. Yes, she voices Miss Minutes, and then she also voices the floating head character, which in Volume 2 was voiced by Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
Which I found that out this week, and I was like, what? I need to rewatch that movie. Which also, she's a very famous voice actor. She voices Melody in The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. Fun fact. So yeah, I guess there is a little bit of a Loki connection there with the actors.
Also voices Timmy Turner.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Ow. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I can kind of see it. I grew up on that show, so I can kind of see it. But since I was going into this movie thinking that Rocket was going to die, I thought I was going to be just a ball of mess this entire movie. I even brought tissues because I was like, I need to be prepared. I didn't use them. I did tear up a little bit, especially when all his friends died. But I wasn't too emotional. It would have been worse if he actually did die. That would have been worse. but I didn't cry as much as I thought I was going to. So I think I can rewatch this movie at some point because I know some people don't think they can. Like it's one of their favorite Marvel movies, but they won't be able to rewatch it.
No, yeah, like that's a thing where it's like it was like a thing. I don't know where I saw it, but it's like movies that are good, but you won't rewatch them. But it's
Top of the
not.
list is Schindler's List.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Marley and Me.
I've watched that a few times and I don't know why.
I have rewatched it. Don't know why. You know, sometimes you just need to have a cry. And I know if I need to have a good cry, I can watch that movie. And I know I will be bawling at the end. Again, like I said, I cry more over animals than humans. um I think the only time that I really cried over someone dying was honestly during Endgame.
Tony?
No, not Tony.
Not Tony.
Not Tony, surprisingly. It was actually Natasha.
Oh, yeah.
When she sacrifices herself on Vormir. And the thing that got to me was how she laid the exact same way as Gamora. That's
I think they
what
said that.
pushed me over the edge.
That's
No pun
probably on
intended.
purpose. Oh my
Um, yeah, that's what made me actually cry. It wasn't over Tony, it was over Natasha. She deserved better. Honestly, it could have been Clint. Ooh. You didn't hear me say that. But this movie was still an emotional roller coaster because you went from like, oh, laughing to just a dark scene of rockets past. I really hate the high evolutionary, but in a good way. Because we haven't had I don't think we haven't had a good villain in the MCU for a while other than Thanos. Because I
You sure
mentioned
about
this.
that?
Let me finish my point. Because if you listen to the episode last week about live action remakes and how much I love Maleficent as a villain, it's because of how evil she is and she doesn't need a redemption. She doesn't need a redemption arc, which Disney has been loving recently. And the high evolutionary, you don't he doesn't need a redemption arc. You don't need to have sympathy for him. He can just be truly evil because there are people in this world that are truly evil. And so I really loved him as a villain. He reminded me of Thanos because of kind of his motivations. They're a little different, but kind of similar motivations of how he wants a perfect world where Thanos wanted something similar where he didn't want people to suffer. And that's kind of what the high evolutionary was working towards. I mean, he killed a lot of people along the way, very similar to Thanos. I mean, he killed a whole planet
Just
of
like, yeah, I
people.
need to start over.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, actually, I'm gonna just eliminate this whole planet." It's giving Death Star of just destroying a planet. Sorry, Alderaan. Um, so I said we haven't had a strong Marvel villain in a while since Thanos. Who do you think? Are you gonna say Kang?
No.
Okay, so
Um.
who?
Well, that one was before Thanos, but I was thinking like Green Goblin or something for some
I don't
reason.
know if I would count that though
It
because
was
he
in the
came.
MCU.
I know it was in the MCU. He came from the Raimi movies. And I don't know if I would count that because if it wasn't for those movies, I don't think we would have him in the MCU. But I get what you're saying because he was really good in that movie. Um, I just don't know if I would qualify that because he came from a different universe. I Yeah, But I get what you're saying. It's just I think they have been lacking on villains, whereas I know there hasn't always been great villains in the MCU. Just look at Iron Man 2. Yeah. Um, or even Thor 2. Thor the Dark World with the elves. Yeah. No. See, there hasn't always been great villains. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just think we haven't had one in a while. So I was really loving what they did with the High Evolutionary. Um and how much you can just hate on this character. Because the way that after Lila dies and he just like menace menacingly laughs and yells at Rocket, just like teasing him, that is just pure evil. He's just making fun of him after losing his friend. I and I don't know. Is he dead? We didn't technically see a body.
No
Which
body, no death.
no body, no death. They can easily come back. I live by that. I was like, we didn't see a body. So I don't know. But when Rocket went back, so this is the end of the movie. I'm going all over the place. But when Rocket went back to go save the animals, I was like, Rocket, I am you because I would be doing the same exact thing. I would choose the animals over the kids. Hate to say it, but I would. And I was so scared when he saw all the animals. And it was confirmed that he's a raccoon. I was like, yeah, Rocket Raccoon, which I mean, we all knew he's Rocket Raccoon from the comics. He's a raccoon. But the way that they never really confirmed it until now. Um, but the way he went back, I was like, I'm so scared. The High Evolutionary is just going to pop up right now. This is the perfect time, which he does after like a couple minutes, but I was on the edge of my seat, just waiting for him to pop up. Um, and the whole time they were like trying to get back to the way they used nowhere, like the way it can move, it's the head of a celestial. And it's just like a vehicle now. um but the way they were getting all the animals onto nowhere to save them, um I was like, I swear to God, they better all make it. I don't care if Peter doesn't make it. I want all the animals to make it. Okay. See, this is how I am with animals. I don't want a single one of them to perish. Um, but uh so I don't know what I was gonna say. Is there something you want to say while I try to think?
Well, they hint at the holiday special in the second post-credit scene.
Yes, they do. I pointed that out during the
I saw it too.
post-credit scene. I literally pointed to Jen. I was like, Jen, look. Because he goes back to his grandpa, and his grandpa is reading a newspaper, and it talks about Kevin Bacon being abducted by aliens, which is a reference to the holiday special, which you kind of need to watch the holiday special to understand. So it's not as much of a shock that Peter and Mantis are siblings, because they just blurt it out right at the beginning of the movie. And if you haven't seen the holiday special, you would be like, wait, when did we learn that information? Which was in the holiday special at the end of the special. And honestly, that special is really funny. When they brought Kevin Bacon out as a gift, Groot was hilarious. But we're not talking about the special. We're talking about the movie. But something I want to talk about is, so there other than Gamora, Rocket, and Peter and Groot, the rest of the Guardians are on the High Evolutionaries like ship, I should say, that comes out of the planet. So it was also funny how they were trying to get onto the ship while Peter and Groot literally jumped off of the ship, and you can see them flying down, just passing them in the background, and they don't notice. I was cracking up at that moment. Just the miscommunication there, hilarious. But so Peter and Gamora are trying to save Rocket, and I really thought he was gonna. This is the time he was going to leave us. Um, but then Lila was like, "No, it's not your time yet." I was like, "But he wants to. He, I, I get. He still had a purpose. He's always had a purpose. He never thought he had a purpose with the Guardians, but he's always had a purpose, and he still has that purpose down on Earth, not in the big blue sky." That broke my heart. That Lila said that they reached the sky, but I really thought that we were going to lose him here. But then once he came back and the Peter was contacting the Guardians on the High Evolutionary ship, and all of a sudden Rocket talks. That just broke my. I keep saying it broke my heart, but it really did, because you get to see all Mantis, Drax, and Nebula react to hearing his voice again. Because up until that point, they didn't know that he is alive. Like he is still alive and that he's awake. And the way Nebula covers her mouth with her hand, because she's so just overwhelmed that he is still alive. Because that touched me a lot. And people pointed out on Twitter, and this just enhances how much I feel towards her during this moment. So at the end of Infinity War, the only Guardians left were Rocket and Nebula. And so for 5 years, all they had were themselves, just those two. And so they grew really close together because they had no one else that they knew. And so that's why Nebula was so emotional, because we don't see her show emotion at all. Like that was probably the first moment where you could really see the emotion come through Nebula. And knowing that she spent 5 years of her life without the rest of the Guardians except for Rocket.
And also when like Star-Lord was saying like how Rocket was his best friend in Endgame, you can see Rocket wearing a red scarf most of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was Peter's red scarf.
I know.
So
I know. But that moment with Nebula realizing that Rocket is still here, it's making me tear up now just thinking about it. That really touched my heart, just because we don't really see emotion from Nebula, because she grew up to learn to not show emotion because her father was Thanos, and she grew up to be an assassin, really. So that moment broke my heart, but also made me really happy when they found out that Rocket was still there. And then I don't. I liked how at the end Gamora didn't rejoin the Guardians. I know not everyone probably likes that idea, but I like it because otherwise, if say she rejoined the Guardians, it would feel forced because this whole movie we see she is not the same Gamora as before. She hasn't had the time to get to know the Guardians at all, that much. And so if she rejoined the Guardians, it would feel forced and not authentic. It would feel artificial because when we see her with the Ravagers at the end of the movie, it just feels like that's her family now, not the Guardians, the Ravagers. Um, but her line to Peter when they were parting ways, where she was like, "I bet we had a lot of fun." Again, this movie is an emotional coaster. Um, because although she's not rejoining the Guardians, she still has respect for them and Peter. Um, is there something you want to say along the lines of those?
Can't think of anything.
Is there something else you want to talk about the movie? I don't want to be the only one talking here.
I don't remember right now.
Okay. I mean, do you want to talk about our first F-bomb in a Marvel movie?
Like a lot
Because
of
I know
people
you got
cracked
excited
up in
about
my
that.
showing.
I know you got excited about that because we saw a snippet. Because, you know, before movies drop, they'll post small clips online, and they posted that one. And it's our first F bomb in a Marvel movie or in an MCU movie. Which, I mean, PG-13 movies can drop an F bomb. I think it has to be at least an hour in.
And it came in at like the hour and 10-minute mark.
Yeah. So, and actually, it wasn't even in the script. It just kind of came out of Chris Pratt's mouth.
No,
And
I think James Gunn asked Chris Pratt to say it the day of.
oh, okay. So it felt really natural. It was like at the perfect moment because it's like it just came out of nowhere. And if you didn't see that clip online, you're like, wait, what? um, so I just like fit perfectly in to that moment where Nebula just couldn't figure out how to open a car door because she's never seen, well, she has to have seen a car before. I mean, she was on Earth during Endgame.
Yeah.
Um do you know what that type of creature is that Adam was holding as a pet?
No, I don't think
Because
so.
I feel like I should look it up. But the second that creature popped up on the screen, Jen's like, oh no, another creature for you to love. Because if you know me, I love my creatures. Just look like any creature that is in Star Wars specifically, I'm in love with. Chewie, he's literally my favorite character. I love the Wookiees. I also love Gunji. The Porgs, I have multiple Porgs. I love the Porgs. Ewoks, I love the Ewoks. Okay? Um oh, and then the new Jedi Young Adventures little show on Disney Plus. Nubs, I love him. He's like a blue Wookiee or a blue teddy bear. He's adorable. So, literally, any creature that shows up in a movie or TV show, I'm in love. So, once that creature showed up, I was like, oh, I'm trying to like look up what type of creature it is. Because again, I haven't read the comic books. Oh, God. Okay, so the animal's name is Blurp. Um, Interesting name. Which is a lot easier to say than the actual creature species name. Oh God, it's like F apostrophe SAK I. I don't even know how to say that. Is it Saki? Ifsaki? Ifsaki?
I don't know.
Someone is going to be yelling at me. I know when they hear this. They're gonna be like, girl, you don't know anything. I don't, really. I don't. Um, but that creature, I was like, this is he better survive this whole movie along with Rocket. Um, so when the whole planet was like when counter Earth was blowing up, I was like, oh my god, he better survive. Adam, you better save this creature. But I loved him. I Disney, can you please make a plushie of that animal? I'll buy it. I buy most of your merch, so I'll buy this one too. Because I'm a sucker for plushies. Because they just came out with plush nubs for May the 4th. I don't I don't know if I'll buy it. I have to like limit myself with what I buy, especially Star Wars merch. Um, but I did buy the Mustafar coffee mug because I had to. I had to. It's based on Revenge of the Sith, my favorite Star Wars movie. I had to buy that Starbucks mug because when I saw that they posted that online, I was like, oh god. And I just got some Disney gift cards, so I was like, perfect timing. I can buy it without spending my actual money. Do you have a favorite moment from this movie? I just thought of that question.
Maybe when Rocket actually says he's Rocket Raccoon,
Uh huh.
like he actually acknowledges
Like
that.
he acknowledges that he is a raccoon because like they had this running gag throughout the whole MCU until this point where it's like, what is he like in this movie? Adam calls him a squirrel. My favorite personally is in Endgame when Tony calls him a Build-A-Bear. That still makes me laugh to this day. Um, but no, that's a really cool moment where he acknowledges that he is actually a raccoon because he was denying it. He was like, "I'm not a raccoon." Um, but I think it's also like how he's he probably thought he was a raccoon, like, but because of how much the high evolutionary destroyed him and changed his appearance, um, he was like, I'm not a raccoon anymore. But maybe that's just me thinking here. If I had to pick a favorite moment, one, like I said before, where you see Nebula's reaction to finding out that Rocket is still alive, that I feel like that's going to be a moment that I'm going to think of. Like when you think of Marvel movies, I think I'm going to come back to that moment because I know there's people in this world that think that there's no emotion in Marvel movies, that it's just superhero movies, which they are superhero movies, but there is a lot of emotion to these characters and these stories, especially the Guardians. The way that James Gunn has developed these characters, like honestly, this is probably the best trilogy of the entire MCU.
No, because people point out that there was an exchange in the first Guardians movie where Rocket basically screams at Star Lord and I think Drax that he never wanted to like be made or
Yep.
like ripped apart and put back together.
Oh god.
And then I can't remember the exchange in the volume 2, but there's been like interactions in the previous two Guardians where they make a lot Rocket getting mad and stuff about like him being like basically a machine.
Mhm. Like he's
It makes a
artificial.
it gives a lot this one gives a lot of context on why he particularly said that in the first one.
And the way that his first words was hurts. Don't make me cry. That also was a moment where I was tearing up. I was like, that is unnecessary. Like that. Oh, my computer like turned off for a second. That is unnecessary. I did not eat like. And the way that he named himself Rocket because he saw a rocket and that's what he wanted to do. Like that was his goal, to fly into the big blue sky. Stop it. Um but also another favorite moment of mine during this movie was the hallway scene where it was essentially a long take, a one shot where they were all working together to fight, I don't even know, like the bad guys essentially. And you got like no matter where you looked on the screen, you got to see something really cool of how the Guardians were working together. And that will probably go down as one of the best shots in a Marvel movie. It kind of reminds me of the Darth Vader hallway scene from Rogue One, where that's going to be
The
going down in history as one of the best shots in Star Wars movies. I think this hallway scene will go down as one of the best shots in Marvel movies.
once I realized that hallway scene was towards the end of the movie, I'm like, yeah, Rocket's not dying because Rocket's in it, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which trailer preview it's in, but you can see Rocket sitting up on that like table he was laying on for most of the movie. I'm like, yeah, he's not dying. Once I realized that, I'm like, yeah, he's safe.
See, I didn't watch. If I'll be honest, I didn't watch that many trailers or clips from
I
this
didn't
movie.
either. They just popped. They were just
They
like
did
going
pop
around.
up. They did pop up a couple times, so I did see some. But because I was going into this movie thinking that Rocket was going to die, I didn't want to see a lot because not because I thought it would spoil the movie for me, but because I didn't want to get more hurt. Because I was like, I know what's coming. I don't want to see stuff from this movie. Not because I think it's going to spoil it for me, but because I don't want to cry any more than I'm going to, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't even know this hallway scene was going to happen. So I was just having the time of my life watching it. Um, so I think that's also one of my favorite scenes from the movie. And then I have to mention at the end with Groot, where at the end of the movie, instead of saying, I am Groot, he says, I love you guys. I stopped in my tracks. My heart stopped because for almost 9 years now, all we've known is I am Groot. And I went to this movie wearing Groot merch. So I had a sweatshirt that said We Are Groot, and then my hat said I am Groot. So I sit there, I'm like, wow, I'm out of date now. But I was confused. So before you texted me after the movie, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what what he didn't say I'm Groot. And then you texted me saying that James Gunn explained that it was because we understand Groot now because we've spent all this time with the Guardians and with Groot that we now understand him just like how most people in the universe understand him.
Yeah.
And I think me and probably a lot of other people were a little confused about how we could understand him. And I think a way that they could have had this come across a lot easier was if they had a caption at the bottom of the screen that said I am Groot. You know, like how, say, in a movie they're speaking a foreign language, say like French, and they have the captions in English. They could have had that during that moment where it said I am Groot. And I think a lot of more people would understand what James Gunn was trying to do there, where we could understand him, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could have made it a lot easier where you wouldn't have to look up. Because, in all honesty, you shouldn't have to look up stuff from movies to understand something. Like, it should be able to come across. Like maybe you have to think about it for a while, but I don't I think that would have made it a lot easier for people to understand what was happening there, where we were understanding Groot finally because we've spent all this time with him. So that was a moment that again will go down in MCU history, the first time we understood Groot, because now I'm like, okay, well clearly he's going to show up again because they had a credit scene where we saw Rocket, Groot, Adam fighting together. So clearly Groot is going to show up again. So are we going to understand him, or is he going to keep talking in I am Groot? That's something I'm wondering,
Yeah.
because now we understand him technically. But I don't know. I don't know because James Gunn is not working with Marvel anymore. He's the head of DC. So I don't know. Disney really fumbled the bag there. So, because like I said, this is probably the best trilogy in the
It's
whole.
the most consistent over the out of like a trilogy. It's the one that had the movies are the most consistent in like
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
how they
Because
are.
I know there will probably be people saying that Spider-Man is probably the best trilogy, which it's up there. It's probably number 2 or even Captain America. But for for instance with Spider-Man, I think and I felt this even right after the movie. Yes, I loved No Way Home. I loved it. Still, Homecoming is still my favorite Spider-Man movie and still my favorite MCU movie. Um But even right after the movie, I was like, I don't know if this is going to age well because a lot of the hype and love for this movie comes from nostalgia. It does, in all honesty. Without those villains coming back and without Andrew and Toby coming back, I don't know if the movie would have been as good as it was.
And Sony kind of fumbled the bag with what they did with the whole like purple sky thing where they put in one of their other movies, they put an MCU villain in their universe. It's like
Mm-hmm.
Sony, stick to animated Spider-Man movies because you
Honestly.
can't really
Into
make
the
a
Spider
good
Verse?
live action
Mm.
Spider-Man related movie in a while.
Um,
Also, Sony, why are you making your next Spider-Man villain movie rated R when you literally had a perfect opportunity to make a rated R Spider-Man villain movie? Like, you legitimately had a villain where it's one of the worst villains in Marvel Comics history, and you don't make the movie rated R.
we're talking about Venom,
No,
right?
no, it's
Oh,
Venom 2,
yeah, yeah, that's
particularly.
what I meant. The sequel. Um, so I think I would say this is the best trilogy in the MCU. And if we were to rank the Guardians movies, how would you rank them?
It's weird because I rank things like a little differently in like two different ways. Just like what, like from like the best to worst, and then which ones I would want to watch the most and watch least, like that kind of idea.
I get that. I get that.
So it's kind of hard because I'm like they're pretty much consistent over, but it's like which one would I want to watch? Oh my gosh, Emmy!
Emmy in the background. Um,
Yeah, you're not a beautiful blessing.
that's.
You wanted to name her that.
I thought it was a cute name, and then mom
The
was like,
other
"Yeah, that's
dog
a good
is
name."
like green tree.
Interesting. Um, it's like Groot,
Yeah.
but um, for me personally, I guess I'll go first with my ranking. And for clarity, I haven't seen Volume 1 and Volume 2 in at least a year. So I haven't watched them recently. So my ranking might change if I watch them soon or like watch them together in like a binge watch kind of way. So right now my ranking from top to bottom from 1 to 3 goes Volume 1, Volume 3, and then Volume 2. And I'm not saying that Volume 2 is a bad movie. It's difficult. Like I said, this is probably the best trilogy in all of the MCU, and they're very consistent movies. And I think it helped that James Gunn directed all of them. So he had this vision going through. I mean, he did say that they kind of took Gamora away from him because he wasn't going to. It wasn't his plan to lose Gamora. So he kind of lost that character in not even his own movie, and he had to work with that with the best that he could.
And like you have to remember, like he was fired, then rehired, and that's why
That's
this
true.
one particularly took longer. Like it's been 6 years in between the second one and third one because he was making
Yeah.
a actually good Suicide Squad movie that
Hmm.
sucks that it didn't do as well.
Yeah. Um,
Oh my gosh.
but that's my ranking. I think Volume 1 is at number 1 just because it's a great origin story movie.
And it's
I do love a
it's
good origin story movie. As you can tell, my favorite MCU movie is Spider-Man Homecoming.
and
Although it's not technically an origin story, it is the beginning of um, this Peter's story.
yeah.
So I do love a good origin story. I mean, just think about it. My favorite Star Wars trilogy is the prequels. That's an origin story. There you go. I do love an origin story. So, but I know there's been a discourse online, especially Twitter, with people ranking the Guardians movies because people love to rank trilogies or movies in a trilogy, like we're doing right now. And there is a lot of people putting Volume 2 at the bottom. And like I said, it's not a bad movie in any way, shape, or form. I just liked these other two more. And maybe in the future it'll go up in my rankings. But that's just me right now. I mean, things can change in the future. So how about you?
It's probably the same.
Probably the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, that's
And
valid.
also Guardians 1 was kind of the first true like we first get an idea of what the Infinity Stones were.
That's true.
Because I feel like people forget about this about Guardians 1. Thanos is just in it for a few seconds when he's talking to Ronan.
Yep. That was like our first full kind of introduction to Thanos. Yes, he shows up in the post-credit scene of the first Avengers movie, but it's literally just him looking at the screen. Like we actually see him talking.
And I think that was the first time Josh Brolin played him.
Mhm. So, that was kind of our first full introduction to Thanos and the Infinity Stones, which if you're like me, you didn't read the comics. So, that is literally your first introduction to them. And it's just a great origin story. We get to you fall in love with these oddball characters, these misfit toys, if I can say. Um, and it's just a fun movie. I love fun MCU movies. I know, serious movies they're just not my favorite. If I'm being honest, I do love the fun Marvel movies. Um, Not saying they can't have any serious tones in it. Like Infinity War. Like that's one of my favorite MCU movies. Yes, it's a fun movie, but there is just some serious action and storytelling going down in there. So I'm not saying I don't enjoy that at all. It's just like, for example,
Oh
Captain
my
America
gosh.
Winter Soldier. It's an amazing Marvel movie and a spectacular movie overall. It's just not one of my favorites. Like I would have more fun watching Spider-Man Homecoming or Infinity War. That's just me.
And then there's me who absolutely loves The Winter Soldier.
Yes. Isn't that your favorite Marvel movie?
Yeah, I actually got pranked on
Yes.
seeing it. I was told we were going to a store, and then I realized we were not in the same county, and I was like, and then like a second later after I point that out, we come up to a drive-in theater.
You're like, oh my gosh.
I saw it. The first time I saw the Winter Soldier movie was in a drive-in theater on opening night.
Period. Where would you? I know we did a ranking of the trilogy as a whole, but where would you put this movie in your Marvel rankings? Like, not specifically, but like which area? You know, you have your top Marvel movies, your mid tier, and then your bottom tier. Where would you put this movie?
Top, mid tier, or low, like top tier, like somewhere there. Because I would have to think about it.
Yeah.
Like somewhere around there.
Honestly, I would probably be the same.
And a cat just came in.
Which cat came in?
The one I like to call the little Miss.
So that's Daisy.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know where Goose is. Speaking of, I saw the Marvels trailer before this movie.
Oh yeah, we got it
That
too.
was really fun.
Oh yeah, this was weird. We did not get the Across the Spider-Verse trailer. We got a Pixar trailer. And I was like, this is the first time I've seen this on the big screen.
We also did not get Across the Spider-Verse.
I'm surprised because I would think, because typically like studios will. But I did get the Oppenheimer trailer. I was so happy about that one because I heard the noise at the beginning. I'm like, this is it, because it hadn't been released online at all at that point. So
you and Oppenheimer. Yes, I did see the Marvels trailer, and I did freak out when I saw Goose because I am so excited to see Goose again. If you didn't know, my cat is named Goose, so
and it's an orange cat,
Goose. And he has to be an orange cat. And then the Florkin army that is coming, I'm like, I need to know every single one of their names because I will need to add that to my cat name list. But for me personally, for where I would put this in my Marvel ranking, okay, so is that her collar going off?
Yeah.
So for context, the last MCU movie before this one was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Which I love the Ant-Man movies.
Guardians already made more money.
Good, as it should. I love the Ant-Man movies. Like, I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is underrated. And I was just so disappointed by Quantumania. And so for context, that would be my bottom tier.
Yeah.
Of Marvel movies, along with like Thor: The Dark World. So I think I would put it similar to where you did, where it would be top of my mid tier / low of my top tier Marvel movies. Because it's not my favorite Marvel movie. That is still Spider-Man: Homecoming, like I said for the 5th time today. But it's slightly below Volume 1, which is in my top tier of Marvel movies. So I would just put it like there. That's where I would put it. Do you have any other thoughts in regards to this movie that you want to talk about? Or anything about the MCU?
Well, we're getting the next show next month.
Which is crazy to think about. Like, we're getting Secret Invasion next month, which I know it's going to be the end of June, so it's like kind of towards July more so than the beginning of June. But it's still technically next month, which is kind of crazy to think about because we're going to have Secret Invasion, and then right after that, basically Ahsoka.
I think they may like wait a week out I don't know how long Secret Invasion is, but it's pretty much either gonna wait 1 week or like premiere Ahsoka right after.
Yeah, because we know Ahsoka's coming in August. We don't know when exactly.
I think it's gonna. I'm guessing it's gonna be around the 16th of August because that's a Wednesday.
Yeah, so there might even be some overlap
I don't think they
because
will.
how many episodes are going to be in Secret Invasion? Do you know?
I think I've heard 6. I don't know. Let me check.
Okay, yeah, because if it's like if there's 8 episodes, there's definitely going to be overlap. But
They
if
could
it's
do the
six, it would be
Hawkeye
like,
thing where they do the double premiere.
which is quite a lot. They did that last year with Andor and She-Hulk. Whew, it's quite a bit. But
6 episodes.
okay, so it'll be
That
ending right as Ahsoka
yeah,
begins,
pretty much. It'll
essentially.
give like a week.
Yeah, which crazy. But there has with the Secret Invasion, there has to be tie-ins to the Marvels
No,
coming
yeah, I
later
think
this
there
year.
will
There
be.
has to be. Like they can't like I'm not saying oh Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel or even Monica Rambeau has to make an appearance. That's not what I'm saying. But because we're dealing with the scrolls, and that was a huge part of Captain Marvel, there has to be like tie-ins to the Marvels. Maybe even a Goose appearance. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying that so I can get more Goose content because more Goose content just makes me happy. Um, or maybe it doesn't even have to be Goose. It could be any kind of Flurkin. Oh, because we know the Skrulls do not like Flurkins, as you saw in Captain Marvel. So that's kind of crazy. So we have Secret Invasion coming next month, and then I guess the only other Loki is not coming until next year, right?
We don't. Honestly, I think it was supposed to maybe come out in like that fall time slot right after Ahsoka, but considering stuff that's happening, we don't
With the writer
know.
strike, yeah.
No,
But
not the writer strike.
oh, oh,
It's
with Jonathan
yeah.
Majors.
It's like we
Yes.
don't exactly know, and people are like, we don't know exactly what Marvel's gonna do with
Yeah, I
King,
don't know.
if they're gonna recast him or not. But people have come up with actors they would like to replace. That if they were to recast, who they would want to be in the role then.
We might want to think about recasting. Um, well, I think it was said that Skeleton Crew is premiering at the end of this year.
Which probably took
It's a spot of Loki,
yeah.
which I'm fine with. And then Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson's in like that.
It's like
I don't think they're gonna do. It's gonna be late.
it's gonna be early 24. I think
It may
early
be in a
24.
like March slot that Moon Knight premiered in.
Mm,
I think because they
okay.
wouldn't premiere it because haven't really premiered shows in January or February. They've done March, so it may be like
Mm-hmm.
March or something.
Okay. Um. So I was just asking because we have Secret Invasion next month, and then basically the only other Marvel content this year is going to be the Marvels,
Yeah, and so
which
we're going over. I think 6 months without a Marvel movie,
I'm not complaining.
which is also like
I think we had Marvel overload for way too long, and people are getting tired out from it, especially since the movies haven't been so great.
and like the Marvels has a big challenge because I think it's right before it right before it's coming out. I think Dune Part 2 is coming out, and then right after it, I think it's the prequel to Hunger Games, and then the week after the Hunger Games prequel is the new Disney animated movie. So like the month of November is just gonna be
It's stacked.
insane with movies. Like there's a few months this year where it's like every week there's like a movie, big blockbuster movie coming out, and it's like what is happening?
I know. It's the same thing with the summer movies.
Especially June.
It's kind of crazy. But I'm not complaining that we're not getting as much Marvel content as we've been getting the past couple of years.
All I want is next Cap movie, and I'm good.
Which that's coming when?
I think May of next year.
That's crazy to think about.
That's almost if they have to do reshoots, which right now you can't exactly do reshoots.
Yep.
And it's also crazy. So, because in 6 months it's gonna be November. It is likely that within 6 months of now, we will be knowing who is playing the Fantastic Four, possibly.
Oh yes.
Which is
Which
not
I know
even
who you,
not even 4 years ago we thought would be happening.
I know who you want
Because
to
he
play.
slipped.
Reed
Kevin Feige
Richards.
slipped in the Fantastic Four right at the end of the 2019 panel, and then at the start of their panel last year at Comic-Con, it's like, yeah, we're doing a Fantastic Four movie, and Wakanda Forever is the last movie in Phase 4, and we're like, what is happening?
Literally. What are your plans, Feige? What are we doing? Which I know you want Adam Driver to play Reed
That's
Richards.
what I've heard. That's not me saying I want it. It's just like, that's what I've seen.
You're saying you wouldn't want him to play Reed Richards.
It would be interesting.
Really? Who, if not for Adam, who would you want to play the character?
I honestly don't know, but it's just like that's what people are speculating. That I did not say that.
That just seems like a slam dunk for you.
Yeah, and it comes out the month it's supposed to come out. It's like, yes.
Your birthday month?
Yeah.
Hey, hate to break it to you, but I have the best birthday month, so.
Oh, shut up. My birthday. I've gotten some good movies, but it's a dead month for movies.
All of the Star Wars movies, except for the sequel trilogy and Rogue One, have come out in May, so. You know, I got May the 4th in there. George Lucas's birthday is in there. And my birthday, so pretty great month. Which I want another Star Wars movie to come out in May so that hopefully it can come out on my birthday. Because so far, Star Wars movie has not come out on my birthday, so I'm a little bitter about that. Because The Last Jedi was supposed to come out on my birthday. But, you know, I'm not complaining or anything, clearly. I'm not complaining because The Little Mermaid's coming out on my birthday this year, so that's exciting. Any more thoughts?
No.
Okay, so that was our episode on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Sadly, it's the last movie in the Guardians trilogy. They did confirm at the end of the movie that Star-Lord is returning. And I don't doubt that the other characters won't also return, just not together as a group, as a whole. But that was our episode on the movie. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, family. That helps us out so much. You can also find us on Instagram as Film to Screen, Twitter as Film to Screen, which you haven't been tweeting in a while, but it's fine. Oh. And then TikTok as Film to Screen. We've had some videos go viral all over there, so that's interesting. You can also find us on YouTube as Film to Screen. We post the podcast on there and also clips of the podcast. So you can find us over there if you want to use that platform. And until next time, see you at the movies. Or watching Secret Invasion. Or The Marvels. The next Marvel movie. I'm just happy we're not getting Marvel content as much. Because hopefully, quality over quantity. That's what I'm saying.